What's good, everybody? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. All sorts of fired up to be here. You guys have tons of options. I truly do appreciate you making us part of your day each and every day. Josh Pate himself joining us from New York City, here to do some CBS work, but joining us nonetheless at 4:20 p.m. We've got your upset picks coming up at 4 o'clock this afternoon, my friends. We've got our high school athlete of the week today at 5:40 p.m. this afternoon. Along the way, At.Kelley Ford will also be joining us. I'm going to give you my upset pick. Clemson is on a list this week that they absolutely should not be, and we invite you to kick a team out of a conference. That, my friends, and so much more coming your way between the hours of 3 and 7 p.m. today. Guys, also want to let you know that had a cooking show extravaganza yesterday. If you said to me, Mark, what sort of events would your bosses be okay with you missing work for and not missing work for? Listen, a cooking show would be like first on the list of things they wouldn't be okay with me missing work for. But as you guys know, we got a great relationship with Ingles. Ingles requests us 4 times a year to do a cooking show. The bosses say, yay. And so we were in a town called Mars Hill, North Carolina yesterday. It's outside of Asheville. Never been there before. Gorgeous. Rolling hills, golden leaves. There's a college right in the middle of town. Had some Smokin' Joe's barbecue food truck yesterday. We did our cooking show yesterday, and I was able to share with you guys our first ever video. Okay, our first ever video that Angela and I did together, my wife and I've posted it on Twitter. So if you would like to see our first ever cooking show video with Ingles, the Ingles table, recorded for television and now also on YouTube, you can go to Marc Ryan on Air and you'll see a little dish that we made. It's about a 7-minute video called Fruitcake Surprise, because fruitcake sucks. Diesel, how did it go yesterday, man? You, Carlos, I took a quick look at the text line, and it seems like the Duke's Mayo content is just the gift that keeps on giving, man. It just so I gather from this. I was just reading some of the text messages. Carlos tried Duke's on the air for the first time in his life.
Yeah, it's not classically good content to just eat a sandwich live on the air.
No,
but that's what he did. And it worked, and the phone lines were lit up. The text line was lit up, and he started slow. Like, the first time he had it, he's like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't really think there's really that much to this. And then he gets deeper and deeper into the sandwich, and then he gets a bite with more mayonnaise, and he's like, oh, I get it now. You guys were right. I was wrong.
Yeah. No, listen, man, the Duke's Mayo content, Carlos, that is winning content. You know, pay no attention to eating a sandwich on the air being bad content. That is great content, because people in this area are incredibly proud of their Dukes. So, Carlos, thank you for being here yesterday. Diesel, great job as always. And fantastic to have you guys with us here today. Here's how you can chime in. 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. TheCarPro.com text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. So let us open with this. All right. I keep seeing Clemson on a lot of lists this week. Clemson is on upset alert. We're going to do our upset pick contest today. You guys know how it works, right? You pick an underdog, and if your underdog wins, you get the number of points that they were an underdog, right? And like, I got Dan B feverishly working on the updated upset pick standings as we speak. We got all this great stuff going on, right? And, everyone's, okay, how big of an upset do I need here? Do I need a swing for the fences, or will a single or will a double do? I mean, Diesel, that's the best description for how to do this upset pick contest, right? Do I need a home run today? Do I need to swing for the fences? Because in baseball, what happens when you try to hit a home run? You strike out. If you try to make good contact, that is when you hit a home run. It works the exact same way in our upset picks contest. I have been going for singles, Diesel, and now I've hit 3 upset picks. I've hit 3 upset picks this year, Diesel. A couple weeks ago, I hit BYU over Texas Tech. Last week, I hit NC State punking Miami at home. This week, for the first time in a long time, I'm either, Diesel, I'm going for a double or a home run, okay? For the first time in a long time, I'm taking a little bit deeper cut, and I'm down to 2, and my pick will be coming your way at 4:40 this afternoon. But Clemson is finding themselves on a list this week that I think is total hooey and total bunk. And I think we got way too many people that are falling in love with the conference standings right now. You open the page to the conference standings in the ACC, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you see Clemson sitting there in 10th place in a 14-team league. You see Georgia Tech sitting there in 3rd place in a 14-team league. What the hell? And then you look at this point spread for this upcoming week, and it says to you, I was looking at this earlier today, and I've been monitoring movement on this line. Clemson minus 14 points. And you scratch your head, and you're like, well, something's not adding up here, because Georgia Tech's in 3rd place in the ACC, and Clemson is in 10th place in the ACC, and you're telling me Clemson, who has been a bad ACC team this year, they're 14-point favorites. 14-point favorites. All right. Over Georgia Tech. And you're not buying it. True to form, Georgia Tech has about a 20% chance of winning this game. So as a 14-point underdog, 1/5 of 14 points is almost 3 points. That's not a bad efficiency pick. But I don't know, guys. Like, at this point, I have now watched I've watched Clemson Notre Dame twice. Okay. I saw it for the first time late Saturday night, because Saturday during the day I was getting ready for the CBS show. And then I saw it again last night, rewatched it. And here's what I took away. All right. I got the sense, watching and rewatching Clemson Notre Dame, that the Tigers have turned a corner and are riding a wave of momentum. And, I understand the thought process. Well, they were up for Notre Dame, and they're going to come crashing down. They shot their shot against Notre Dame, and now they're going to come crashing down. And that's not the sense I got. Remember the Muddy Money Bosstones? They had that song, The Impression That I Get. Ba, 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 ba. The impression that I got was that Clemson has turned a corner. And that's not to say that every game is going to be great, but I do get the sense that Clemson is ready to be playing its best football of the season. And with that being the case, I don't see Georgia Tech beating Clemson at Clemson, regardless of what the standings are in the ACC. Okay, now the Yellow Jackets do have a couple of halfway decent wins this year. They beat Miami when Miami was number 17. We have since known that Miami is a fraud. And remember that wild and crazy finish where Miami only needed a knee. They didn't take a knee, and Georgia Tech beat them. Georgia Tech essentially played Miami as close as Clemson did. Well, Marc Ryan, what are you saying? Georgia Tech won, Clemson lost. Yeah, but the game was roughly as close as the Clemson game, right? Georgia Tech was set to lose. Miami didn't take a knee. Clemson was set to beat Miami, couldn't hold a lead in the 4th quarter. Game goes into overtime, right? I mean, those were very, very competitive games. I am going to give Georgia Tech a huge tip of the cap for beating North Carolina 46-42. And then last week, Virginia was not close to the Yellow Jackets, was not even close. 45-17 was the final score. The tip of the cap to the Yellow Jackets came from the fact that they were +3 in the turnover column. No turnovers for the Yellow Jackets, 3 for the Virginia Cavaliers. That'll do it. Diesel, agree or disagree? I mean, I think when we hit the upset picks today at 4 p.m., I predict we're going to see, especially from our Gamecock fan contingent, quite a few Clemson picks with Georgia Tech as the upset. Should Clemson, is this a game where Clemson is on upset alert here? What do you think?
Well, I think every game Clemson is on upset alert because they've lost games that they shouldn't have lost this year. Georgia Tech is scoring an awful lot of points. Now, granted, they're not doing it against a Clemson caliber defense. Don Munson said as much on the show yesterday. But Georgia Tech can score against a lot of different opponents. It all depends on what Clemson comes out offensively. Are we going to get first half of Notre Dame Clemson, which was stellar? Are we going to get second half, which was awful? I looked it up, Mark. 5 straight punts, a fumble, and a turnover on downs. That was Clemson's final 7 possessions. 5 straight punts, a fumble, and a turnover on downs. This offense is not anywhere near where anyone thinks it's going to be and be with this inflated mindset over last week. It's not there. Clemson got incredibly lucky, played well in the first half. That muff punt against Notre Dame, that helped a lot to get that team going. Is Clemson on? Would I say it's a lock? No. Would I say it's something that should make Clemson fans nervous? Yeah, it absolutely should, because you don't know which team is coming out.
And you know what else, Diesel? I think football on a level like baseball, the game of baseball can be as simple or complex as you want it to be, right? You can go out and see ball, hit ball, right? Or you can break it down to the percentage of times a batter gets a hit facing a slider to the outside corner versus a curveball to the inside corner, right? There are, and the analytics that legislated the stolen base out of the game. Statistically, it's not a smart play, right? It can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. The game of football is not all that dissimilar, but for Clemson, the formula is really, really this. You know, with that defense, brother, you don't turn the ball over, and you either win the game or you're in the game against anybody, against Michigan, against Georgia, against Alabama, against Ohio State, against Oregon, against Washington. With that defense, you don't turn the ball over, and you're in it to win it, right? So it comes down to that for me. You know, if you tell me, okay, Mark, it's a third quarter and Clemson is -2 in the turnover margin, upset alert was right. Upset alert was right, and Phil Maffa did have the fumble. It always amazes me, Diesel, like it doesn't seem as though fumbling propensity has anything to do with size and strength. You know what I'm saying? Because Maffa is one of the more intimidating specimens I've ever seen.
It's the discipline to keep that arm clenched and high and tight all the way through a play.
High and tight, man. Can you do it? Can you do it? Check on the carpro.com text line. Diesel, that first text, is that safe to read? The first text that we got on the show today? I'm going to go with no. Mark, can we agree that this Michigan story is now officially sucks? This Michigan story now officially sucks? I think so. What do you think, Diesel, that first text?
Probably not.
Probably not. Okay.
Probably not. Funny, though.
Yeah, it is funny.
Funny texter.
Yeah.
Credit where credit is due.
I hope Will Shipley is still injured for Clemson's sake. That's not very classy, texter. That's not very classy at all. Best thing that happened to Clemson was Tyler in Spartanburg and Shipley getting hurt. Oof. This guy is not earning any brownie points with the Shipley family today. That's for sure. Georgia Tech has only scored less than 30 one time this year. You ready for this, texter? They're going to score less than 20 on Saturday. And they scored 34 and 46 against Louisville and UNC. Money is on Georgia Tech to cover. I'm not saying it's not on Georgia Tech to cover, but it's on Clemson to win. Texter says, Mark, Clemson is Cade Klubnik is prone to throwing it to the wrong colored jerseys, and Maffa is notorious for having Butterfingers. Butterfinger is an all-time top 5 Halloween candy. That's too late, right? It's 8 days ago. But the Rambling Wreck is going to prey on that. So says Mongo. Mongo is prepping us for Georgia Tech, his upset pick. He's going to be wrong. Texter says, UNC fan here. Hate Clemson and despise them, but need them to beat Georgia Tech for my heels and for us to win out. Need Louisville to lose and Georgia Tech to win. Not bad. Not bad, Texter. I mean, I understand. I feel you. All right, guys. Should Clemson be actually on upset alert this week? What do you think? Should they be on upset alert? I say absolutely, positively no. Heck no. All right? In the end, it's Clemson and it's Georgia Tech. Sometimes, folks, all you have to do is say it out loud. All right? The formula is play defense, have Cade Klubnik be the game manager, and do not you can let the bodies hit the floor, but do not let the balls hit the floor. Kelley Ford joins us next. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Fantastic to have you guys with us. All right, joining us right now, as he does every single day at this particular time, it is the man, the myth, the legend himself from thelines.com. It is none other than Kelley Ford of K Ford Ratings. And that, my friends, is what is here right now. Kelley Ford, good afternoon. I appreciate it. How are you, sir?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing well. How are you today?
Well, buddy, well. So, Kelley, what was it about Clemson Notre Dame that didn't make sense to a lot of us that follow the sport day in and day out? We didn't understand. You know, my score was Notre Dame 31, Clemson 13. Diesel said Notre Dame 24, Clemson 10. This seemed like a game where Vegas swung and missed, but why did they end up being accurate? I've watched that game now a couple of times. I still kind of can't believe what I'm seeing. The variance in performance from Clemson, home and away, week in to week out.
Yeah, Mark, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. The variance of home versus road for Clemson and just the surprise performance that Clemson had, you know, coming off 2 straight losses. Granted, both of them close, but Notre Dame was playing really, really well on their side as well. So it was definitely kind of out of left field. It was, you know, the lowest point that Clemson could have been at maybe. And we talk about the peaks and the valleys, you know, the highest you have a team power rated, the lowest you have a team power rated. Notre Dame was kind of reaching that peak, and Clemson has certainly reached that valley. And so the law of averages does say that you're going to bounce back and either regress or progress to the mean here on either side of that. But it's quite the art trying to figure out exactly when that bounce back happens versus when the slide or the climb continues. And it was an interesting game. Clemson certainly played like we haven't seen them play in quite some time, and Notre Dame really, really struggled on the road, as they have done a time or two this year as well. So it was an interesting game, and man, did Clemson fans need that, and did Dabo need that. And I know he had some interesting post-game comments too. Buy all that stock you can, he says, and we'll see. I still have concerns, you know, long-term about what does the Clemson program look like in this current environment of college football, but it was without a doubt, a great win for Clemson on Saturday.
Kelley, what does your model say about James Madison compared to the relative strength of the Sun Belt as a whole? Mark has tried to rub my nose in it a couple times, and he said that it makes the Sun Belt look bad for James Madison to come right in and, to this point, run the table. So what do you see in your model about the Dukes?
So James Madison is a really, really good football team, Diesel. And I can understand where Mark's coming from in terms of, the new kid on the block is having success right away. And I get that to a certain extent. But
well, wait a minute. Kelley, time out here. What I want to say is it says to me that the very, very top of the FCS, right, might actually be, and where do you have James Madison power rated right now, Kelley? I don't want you to get back to Diesel's question, but where are they?
Yeah, for sure. Right now, James Madison is power rated number 43 for me in all of FBS.
So even though they're in the top 25, you're not looking at, what is deserved and merit. You're looking at actually how good they are relative to other teams around them. It just might be the case that top 5 teams in the FCS, the Furman and the North Dakota States, are actually, at the level of like a Florida Gators or at the level of maybe better than South Carolina. I mean, back to Diesel's point, is Kelley, is that where we're at with teams like this?
Yes, Mark. And to Diesel, to your point, they are my number one power rated team in the Sun Belt. They have the number one offense, the number one defense in that Sun Belt East. They would be the favorites in the Sun Belt East, of course, if they were eligible for the Sun Belt championship game and for postseason play. I know there's a petition circulating from James Madison. We'll see where that goes, if anywhere. But Mark, to your question, absolutely. The top of the FCS is not just, okay. The top of the FCS is really, really good. And if we're looking at this year at South Dakota State, this South Dakota State team right now, I have with my FCS light model, if they were an FBS team, I would have South Dakota State power rated inside the top 25. I mean, if I go to my power ratings right now, they would be somewhere around, Utah, SMU, Missouri, North Carolina. Like, that's how good my FCS light model thinks South Dakota State is this year. And James Madison was having kind of maybe not that level of success, but they were certainly on the upper echelon of FCS before they made the transition. And it's great to see them having this much success. And I'm excited for this program once they get through their transition period, because as we talked about before, the Sun Belt could be well on their way to being the best, quote, group of 5 or whatever we end up calling that moving forward. They could be the best group of 5 conference as the American continues to kind of get plucked from the Power 5, and these Sun Belt programs really continue to get better. I'd love to see the bottom of the Sun Belt get better. Like, they probably need the bottom to get better, but the top, my goodness, the top's as good as any other top of the G5s.
So that's interesting. I think it kind of debunks Mark's point that the Sun Belt isn't as good, because you have them rated at or close to the top of your group of 5 conferences. While you brought it up, your FCS light model, is there anything you can tell us about our local team here, the Furman Paladins?
I unfortunately am not at my computer right now, which is where I have my FCS model located, but I can certainly tweet back at you guys at the show here in a few minutes when I get to my computer where I have Furman power rated in the FCS light model.
Kelley, why is Ohio State your number one team? And I'm curious if you agree with your model there, because, I don't know, man. And I'm curious where you come out on this. Like, this resume argument drives me crazy. We don't have 300 data points, Kelley. We have 9. You can make every effort to have a good resume, and, you might schedule James Madison during a year where they're really good. You might schedule them in a year where they're not. And so I just, okay, if you want to say, well, Ohio State has the best victories, great. You're not saying that. The playoff committee is saying that. But whenever I've watched them play, I don't see a team that I believe is capable of winning the national championship.
So, Mark, it's a good question. It's a fair question, and they are number one on my most deserving. Ohio State is not number one on my power ratings. That belongs to Michigan. But as I'm evaluating resumes, and as you said, not everybody plays everybody. There's not enough weeks in the year for us to do that in college football. We understand that. So what we can try to do, though, is view every single team's schedule through a common lens. And I agree with you that, hey, there's scheduling luck involved here. Teams that you thought were going to be good when you scheduled them 5-10 years ago are not good, or teams that you thought were going to be a cupcake when you scheduled them 4 years ago ended up having a great year in the year that you happen to be playing them. So that is absolutely at play here, and there's very little we can do about that other than something I've pushed for a while. Stop scheduling games so far out. We proved during COVID you can schedule games on as little as 1 week's notice. And I'm not suggesting that become a normal practice. Like that's not logistically ideal, but we can do things differently, and we don't have to schedule games out 10, 15, 20 years in advance. We can do scheduling a little bit smarter, and I'm hoping that in the new conference realignment world, we see a little bit of that in the non-conference slate as well. But to answer your question, Mark, of why Ohio State number one, I'm looking at, as you normalize every team's schedule and view it through the common lens of the average top 25 team and say, how is your record against your schedule relative to what would be expected of the average top 25 team against your schedule? Right now, Mark, if I'm looking at it, Ohio State's number one in my record achievement metric. There's only a 2.5% chance that the average top 25 team would be 9-0 against the schedule that Ohio State has played. That's number one in the country. The top five for me in that metric: Ohio State, Washington, Florida State, Alabama, and Texas. Those are the top five teams that have achieved the most relative to expected against their schedule. But that's not the only component that I'm looking at with building resumes. You're also looking at relative scoring margin. So for a team like Michigan, okay, you really haven't played anybody. No one can really debate that. But how have you performed, Michigan, against that schedule? Even though it's a schedule of nobodies, Michigan's number one in my relative scoring margin metric. And what that's looking at is Michigan's outscoring its opponents by 15.3 points per game more than would be expected of the average top 25 team against Michigan's schedule. So again, you're not going to punish Michigan in this metric for not playing anybody. Where they would be punished is if they're not beating them by enough relative to what we'd expect. Well, Michigan's doing that. They're number one in that category. I have Oregon number 2, Penn State 3, Ohio State 4, and Florida State 5. I mash those two things together. They're not equally weighted, but I mash those things together. That's how I get most deserving, and that's how you get Ohio State coming out number one as we evaluate the resumes today.
Kelley, according to your model, which of the top teams, you can say 10, 15, 20, however you want to categorize this, is the most one-sided as a team? Like, one team's got an elite offense, but a weak defense, or a weak offense and an elite defense?
Wow, yeah, that's a good question, Diesel. Let me see here as I roll through.
Washington's one of them. One of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting there, Mark. Let me see here. Penn State, let me pull up Washington first. So for Washington, yeah, absolutely, Mark. You're spot on. They're number 4 offense for me. They're number 37 defense for me, which, again, that's not bad. But when you're talking about the elite upper echelon of college football, having a team that, is in the top 10, top 15 of the power ratings, you'd expect them to not have a side of the ball that's that low. Penn State's another one. I've got the defense number 4. The offense is number 22. So, again, not bad in that regard. I don't have broken out in front of me the offensive defensive split, so I'm trying to flash between the dashboards here quickly. Those are the two that would probably stick out the most at this point in time. With Washington, Mark is a great example, a team that is outside the top 35 on one side. None of these others are really doing that. The most drastic, of course, that you're going to see in all of college football is going to be a team like Iowa, who has the number 2 defense overall and the number 122 offense, which is just absolutely ridiculous. USC is not far behind, mid-80s in defense for the top 2 offense. So, yeah, I'll go with Washington, Mark. That was a great call. I'll go with Washington for the teams at the top there.
Kelley Ford joining us here, Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. All right, Kelley, can I get a guesstimation from you on the odds that Clemson is going to run the table the rest of the way? Georgia Tech, yeah. North Carolina, and at South Carolina. All right. Georgia Tech is a trendy upset pick this week. I don't see it. I don't think Clemson should be on upset alert, but, look, this is a very Jekyll and Hyde team. They play different at home than they do on the road. They get Georgia Tech, they get North Carolina at home, but South Carolina, final game of the year, is on the road. What are the odds Clemson finishes 8-4, Kelley?
The odds of Clemson finishing 8-4 here in the regular season now, Mark, is up to 35%. The numbers have changed significantly following the win against Notre Dame, a win that the model did not expect Clemson to get, a 32% chance to win that game. They did, and in doing so, they improved their power rating by about 1 full point. I mean, that's pretty good movement for this late into the year. So the model upgraded Clemson a point. Because of that, their projections here and because of their opponents' projections, or their opponent's power ratings. The projections have been updated to 35%. We're looking at, 82% chance to win this week against Georgia Tech, 62% chance to win at home against North Carolina. My model makes that right now about Clemson -4. And then to close the year on the road, hey, it's going to be a really tough game. It's a tough environment. It's a rivalry game. You can kind of discount the model a little bit in these situations. I fully admit that. But the model does right now like Clemson by about 6.5 against South Carolina on the road. That's a 69% chance to win. So put it all together, and now you're looking at a 35% chance at 8-4, Mark. So projections are improved for Clemson, as you'd expect, following the great win against Notre Dame.
At.Kelley Ford ratings on Twitter, Kelly. What have you learned about your model this year that you foresee leading to a tweak next year?
I think the thing, Diesel, that I continue to I do the holistic review in the summer every single year, or in the spring leading into the summer, and I'll continue to do that. It's hard for me to dive too deep into the intricacies of the model during the year because I'm trying to pump out as much content as I can, and so time to actually review and study it is for later. But what I will say for right now is I look at really the teams that I've missed the most on. And so if I look at my kind of over and underachievers list, who is doing way better than I expected with regard to win-loss record, who's doing way worse, the teams that kind of stand out to me, I mean, Jacksonville State, just like James Madison did last year, Jacksonville State standing out to me this year. I think I can continue to learn and improve on the FCS to FBS transition, and that's not going to affect a ton of teams. Kennesaw State will do it next year, and there's nobody else, as far as I'm tracking, on the horizon in the future. So it's not going to have a major impact, but overall, the model's performing very, very well this year. It's got a great absolute air, and so I'm satisfied with what the model is doing. The little tweaks that need to be made are kind of on the edges, just trying to smooth those things out. And the FCS to FBS transition continues to be a rough edge that I'm working on. And it's actually gotten much better dealing with the transfer portal this year. It's performing better with the teams that had high transfer volume this year compared to last. Of course, USC was the miss last year, but for as much as Colorado started the year great, and I was like, oh man, maybe I was too low, they've really kind of come back to more where I expected them to be in the preseason. So I'd say continuing to learn on transfers and that FCS to FBS transition, Diesel.
Kelley Ford joining us here on the show. How about now a look at South Carolina? Now, what we do expect a Gamecock win this week over Vanderbilt. What are the odds pointing to for Kentucky at home? And then Clemson at home. Now, Gamecock fans are really down and out right now, Kelly, admittedly so. But I've seen quite a few analytics that give the Gamecocks a real shot now that they've gotten by and survived Jacksonville State to perhaps be on a 3-game winning streak heading into Clemson. Could I get from you, Kelly, the odds that South Carolina cumulatively beats Vanderbilt and Kentucky? Okay, having already beaten Jacksonville State, the odds that they beat Kentucky and Vanderbilt and enter the Clemson game playing for bowl eligibility with a record of 5-6. What would those odds be, and what are their odds against Kentucky at home?
Yep, absolutely, Mark, and I'll out myself as I'm doing the calculation really quickly.
No problem.
My money line upset pick of the week last week was actually, your listeners probably won't like it, was Jacksonville State. I felt okay about it late in the game. South Carolina, of course, the model projected them to win. Again, you're playing with probabilities there and trying to get expected value. So it didn't work out last week for that formula. But okay, here we go. My numbers right now give South Carolina an 83% chance to beat Vanderbilt and a 48% chance to beat Kentucky. So when you put those two things together, Mark, you're looking at about a 40% chance that South Carolina has bowl eligibility on the line, final week of the regular season against their rival Clemson coming to town in a game that Clemson's going to be looking for revenge. Clemson could be, looking for something too in terms of salvaging this season, but a 40% chance that South Carolina rolls or gets the home game against Clemson at 5-6 with bowl eligibility on the table still. My numbers right now give them a 12% chance to finish the year 3-0 here and reach that 6-6 mark, which is so important.
All right, so Michigan and Penn State this coming weekend. What do we make of the Nittany Lions, right? They're 3-16 under James Franklin against top 10 teams, but they were underdogs in all but one of those games. So, to me, Franklin is a coach that, if third place in the Big Ten is good enough for you, you've got the right head coach. If not, Kelly, you might need a different one. He wins the games he's supposed to win and loses the game he's supposed to lose. I saw Josh Pate go on a rant about how you can't call him overrated because that shows a lack of understanding for what overrated means. But he's not able to elevate Penn State above bridesmaid status unless he wins this one against Michigan. What do your numbers say?
It's exactly right, Mark. And I have talked about this at length this week with various outlets. So I'll kind of summarize my thoughts down into this. My numbers right now make it Michigan -1 only. So I'm a little bit higher on Penn State or lower on Michigan, depending on how you want to look at it. Probably a combination of the two than Vegas is. So there's a few things at play here. This Penn State defense is really, really good. It's a top 5 unit. Now, Michigan's a really good team. They're number 1 in my power ratings. They're the number 1 defense in the entire country. They're a top 5 offense. So the question for me in this game, before I get to James Franklin, is will Drew Aller and the Penn State offense, which I currently have number 22, be able to score enough points against this Michigan defense, which is really, really good, the best in the country? They were not able to do so in the only other game this year in which they did not have the talent advantage in the game. Of course, that game would be against Ohio State. Now, that one was on the road, but they only managed 1 touchdown, Penn State offense did, and it was late in the fourth quarter, if you remember. So can they do enough at home on the offensive side of the ball to keep up and stay in this game? My numbers suggest that they should be able to, and to keep it close at least. I think the fact that it's in Happy Valley is huge. Now, for the James Franklin, I agree, Mark, that bridesmaid status seems to be what it is year in and year out. But I also agree with what Josh Pate has said about, yeah, but if you're beating the teams you're supposed to and losing teams you're not, you're properly rated. You're not overrated if you're doing that. You're overrated if you're losing to the teams that you should be beating. For James Franklin, the narrative reminds me a little bit of what Jim Harbaugh's narrative was before Jim Harbaugh was able to knock off Ohio State or beat Michigan State.
In other words, before Jim Harbaugh was cheating. Before he was cheating, right?
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, now that's coming out. You can make the case for that. My point is overarching. The narrative is the narrative until it changes, right? And so this is a big opportunity for James Franklin to change that. And once it changed for Jim Harbaugh, it hasn't changed back. Now, again, sign stealing notwithstanding and all the allegations there. But the larger point, I think, remains valid. And another thing to keep in mind here, Mark, starting next year, the Big Ten is doing away with their division. Penn State will no longer face Ohio State and Michigan every single year. I think that's very important. They're still going to get them some years. They could still match up in the Big Ten championship. But in a 12-team playoff era, Penn State's going to be in the mix for a playoff spot every single year. Penn State's going to make the playoff 50% of the year, if not more, in my opinion, under James Franklin. To me, that's probably good enough for the Penn State administration, and I would hope the fans, but who knows? You're in the playoffs, you win a couple of games in there, who knows? Those are all one-offs, anything can happen. But I agree with you, he has not had enough success against the top teams at this point. This is a huge opportunity for him to change that. It's at home. I'm sure Penn State fans wish it was a whiteout, but it is big noon kickoff on Fox, so that potentially helps Michigan, just the timing of the game.
Kelly, in case you hadn't heard it, James Franklin definitely threw some shade at Jim Harbaugh in his press conference yesterday, where he said, we're only going to be studying the game film that we've been provided. That's all that we're going to study about Michigan is the game film that we've been given.
Oh, man, I did not hear or see that, but my goodness, we are ruffling feathers, boys. It's that time of year that's, hey, you know what? Everyone's taking their shots, and I'm not saying they're wrong to do so. If what Michigan is alleged to have done is true, it's very serious, and there will be repercussions. But for the time being, there's a big, big game on Saturday, and they have a chance to settle on the field, hopefully, with everyone playing by the same rules.
Great stuff, Kelley Ford, as always. Thanks so much, pal. Be sure to get me your upset pick when you can.
Yes, sir. You got it, Mark. Appreciate you and Diesel always. You guys have a good one.
All right, take care. Kelley Ford, K Ford Ratings. Great stuff, as always. Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel. I'm going to tell you exactly why I'm picking who I'm picking. That's all I'm going to reveal right now, plus a pop quiz for Diesel next here on Offsides.
I'm focused on all the stuff I see on film. That's what we're focused on, is all the stuff that we see on film, their players, their scheme, all the stuff. When I say see on film, what we see on the coach's copy of the film, the stuff that's going on between the sidelines, the 53 and a third, that's what we're focused on.
3 different times, James Franklin said, we're focused on what we can see on film, on the coach's film. You telling me that's not a veiled shot at Jim Harbaugh?
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
That absolutely is a shot at Jim Harbaugh. And right now is your shot to win 2 tickets to go see the Furman Paladins this Saturday as they take on the VMI Keydets, a home game in Travelers Rest. You could win a pair of tickets to this week's game, plus you'll have a shot at the grand prize, which is a parking pass, pregame on-field access, video board recognition, and 4 club passes. And as we're doing this right here at the end of the hour, let's go ahead and open up the phone lines right now. Caller number 4 at 844-326-3663, 844-326-3663, a surprise ticket drop. Chance for you to win Furman and VMI tickets.
Absolutely the case, my friends. And we are getting very, very close to your upset pick contest of the week. Also, in the 4 o'clock hour, I have got some handy dandy numbers in front of me. I've cracked the research code, and I've got a new formula to win the national championship in college football that I need to make you guys aware of. Okay, that is coming up in the 4 o'clock hour right now. A check on the carpro.com text line where a texter says, Mark, Clemson's offense generated 9 points once you don't give them the pick 6 and the punt muff 20 yards from the end zone. 20 turnover-free points from G-Tech might be enough on Saturday. So that is what one texter says. A lot of people highlighting Clemson's misgivings. Yeah, okay, but the defense is great. So the formula is just don't turn the ball over. Win the game, right? Texter says, This texter, you admitted something that you shouldn't admit, so I'll admit something that I shouldn't admit. How about that? Texter says, Mark, I eat Duke's mayonnaise right out of the jar sometimes. Not saying I'm proud of it, but I definitely do it. Texter, I have Hanson Mbop on my playlist. How about that? But look at you and me together, both admitting things that we should never admit on the air. Okay? The most embarrassing track that I have on my playlist. I also have Britney Spears' Toxic. You're toxic, I'm slipping under. These are things that I should not admit on the air. But here I am. What am I doing? And why? Great to see everybody on the YouTube channel today as well. We're having a fun time growing this thing, man. If you have not subscribed already, please do so. And coming up next on the show, it is time, my friends, for the upset pick contest. Updated standings, and so much more, all coming your way here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
So regardless, you'll win 2 tickets to the game. No matter what. That's the worst you can do is 2 tickets to the game. You could win the upgrade.
What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your day. It is time for the most hotly participated in contest we have ever had. It is the Upset Pick Challenge, and your upset picks are now live. Of course, we've got the host of the best college football show in America, Josh Pate, joining us in the very, very next segment of the show. We look forward to that. I am down to 2 picks for my upset pick of the week. You guys should be wanting to gravitate toward me now because I am like butter because I'm on a roll. Rest in peace to the late, great Stuart Scott for that one. And, my friends, it is your chance to get your upset picks in. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. And the CarPro.com text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Upset pick challenge. Here we go. John G is already getting in. Southern Cal plus 15 at Oregon. Mongo, I did my best to talk you out of it, man. You know the saying, can lead a horse to water. Taking Georgia Tech plus 14 over Clemson. Guys, listen, you can only hold your kid's hand for so long. At some point you got to let go. Trey in Kentucky's going Kentucky over Alabama for 10.5 points. I think this upset pick just may happen. Another texter says, if we can beat Vandy, our bowl eligibility hinges on the Kentucky game. We have to beat them, though, for Clemson to matter. No, texter, you have to go 6-6 to make the bowl game. So your bowl eligibility, you have to run the table in order to go 6-6 this year. People don't understand how good Clemson's defense is this year because the offense has repeatedly put them in terrible situations with disastrous turnovers. Notre Dame has the number 7 ranked total defense in the nation. If you look at Clemson's next 3 games, Georgia Tech is 126th, North Carolina is 81st, and South Carolina is 118th. 100%. Somebody just said to me on Twitter, texter, did you see Clemson's second half performance? Saying, because I said Georgia Tech, I don't think has a chance to beat them. And I said, yeah, did you see that Clemson was playing against Notre Dame's defense? Show me the rest of the games against Notre Dame's defensive caliber, please. Right? Texter continues, if Clemson just avoids the killer turnovers, their offense will likely look much improved these final 3 games based on the collective weakness. All right, my friends, it is time to update you with our upset pick standings right now. And big thanks to Dan B for getting these in early and often for you right now. Check this out, though. Let's see. Dan B tells me Joe D was close to losing his lead to Pat McAfee. Then Brandon at the end of the night shot up the board to tie Joe D for the lead. Kevin H picked Army to upset Air Force. He was the biggest getter, the biggest mover and shaker of the week. He added 17.5 points. Likely Kevin Hines. So, Kevin, congratulations there, my friend.
That sounds like somebody picking with their heart and just getting crazy lucky.
That's it, man. That is it. Okay. Here we go, my friends, with the updated standings. In 49th place, we've got Commander Reed with 1.5 points. 48th, JT and Greer, 3 points. 47th, Brandon Burnett, 3.5. 46th, my old man Pops has got 4 points. 45th place, we've got Just Jest with 4.5. 44th place, Cowboy Noel with 5. 43rd place, Nathan R with 5.5. Diesel, this is unbelievable. 42nd place, Diesel has 6. 38th place, Marc Ryan has 6.5.
Woo, man, we are at a race to the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
You're bragging about hitting 3 in a row, and you've got 6.5 points.
Rodney Mintz has 6.5. John G has 6.5. Wolverine Joe has 6.5. Hurricane Jeff has 7 in 36th place. So does John Corley, 7 points in 36th place. In 35th, we got Thomas Hell with 8.
Ready to make your pick?
33rd place, we got a tie with former champion Michigan J. Todd and Mongo both have 9. J-Rock has 10 points in 31st place, tied with Emerson M with 10. We also have a tie at 29th place between Buckeye Brian and Will G. Both of them have 10.5 points. Reese Davis is in 28th place. Reese Davis is in 28th place with 11 points. E. Thoughty in 24th. Gamecocks Forever in 24th with 12.5 points. Then we go to the top half. We've got Mark L.O. Ducks also with 12.5. JC with 12.5. Now up to 22nd place we go. I feel like when I'm doing this, I'm like a horse racing commentator. No sex, please. Down the fair stretch, and down the stretch they come. No sex, please, by a nose. 22nd place, we've got Isaac and Scotty Mack with 13 points. 21st place, we've got Dead Sexy Roger Carper, 13.5 points. 20th place, we have Delvin with 15 points. In 19th place, we've got Kelley Ford with 15.5 points. 18th place, Kevin H., 18.5. 17th place, Brandon Gibson with 19 points. 16th place, we've got Dan B. with 19.5 points. 15th place, Logan Simpson, 20.5 points. 13th place, tied for it, we've got Justin L. and Lee Corso. How about Lee Corso? Kicking our tails at the age of 110. This is incredible. 22.5 points. Gold Rush is in 12th place with 23 points. Josh Pate is just outside the top 10. He's got 23.5 points. In 11th place, now to the top 10, we've got Stanford Steve at 24. Delano the truck driver at 25. He's in 9th place. In 8th place, we've got Madcraft, who got 6 points picking against my Gators last week. Speaking between clenched teeth over here. In 7th place, we've got Sherb with 28.5 points. 6th place, Minor 49er. Minor 49er has 29 points. In 5th place, the Leprechaun of Lyman, 29.5 points. 4th place, former leader Kyle D. has 31 points. Pat McAfee is in 3rd with 33.5. And we've got a tie for first, my friends. Brandon and Joe D. are at 40. They are at 40 freaking points. Can I get an amen for those guys?
I'm going to have to search your houses for a Gray's Sports Almanac because y'all have got the answers. How are you doing this?
You do. You know, Diesel, like these guys, they know like the most obscure injury, you know, like when Army's playing Air Force. They know it all. They know it all. Let's see here. Texter says Josh Pate is liking the upset pick contest slightly more this year, he feels. Texter says Florida International plus 10.5 over Middle Tennessee State. So says Wolverine Joe. A to the MFJ. Diesel, I greatly appreciate that he writes that in a way that I can say it on the air. Tulane, Tulsa over Tulane plus 22. You know, Diesel, there's a fair point, okay? And one of the biases that I think helps you, although by looking at the standings, Diesel, not very much, helps you in this upset pick is there's a theory that Las Vegas doesn't spend as much time on the group of 5 games. All these guys picking Missouri over Georgia last week, Diesel, that's a wasted pick.
Sure.
That's a waste of time. But how much time do they really spend on Tulsa Tulane, right? On making sure, do they spend the nitty-gritty of that line? Folks have told me you can make a lot of money on Group of 5 football.
Well, you know, again, not that my expertise is worth anything right now. I've only got 6 points. I'm in 42nd place, but I like to pick games that I think I have at least a smidge of a knowledge base on. You know, I look at the analytics. I look at the FPI. I look at yards per game and how good their defense is. But, like, I don't know anything about the Mountain West. Like, so it would be purely a guess, purely based on the numbers. So I don't get a sense of a feel for any of these games. So that's why I tend to pick my own conference.
There you go. So how about this? Right after the Mongo pick of Georgia Tech over Clemson, which is a very Homer Gamecock pick, we've got Spur Daddy, a fellow Gamecock fan. Here's his upset pick. Vanderbilt over South Carolina. So says a Gamecock fan. Why, Spur Daddy? Why? That is hilarious. JT and Greer says Mark picks Clemson. Kiss of death. JT, listen, we live in a very different world than we lived in a week ago. I am hitting my picks now. There you go. All right, Diesel. It is time for you to make your pick for the day. We've revealed them to you. As soon as I have the graphic, I will be posting it on Twitter and Facebook for you guys today. But we do have the updated standings, and we want to thank Dan B for that. Diesel, what do you got?
Before I get to my pick, I want to find out what Delvin's pick is because I may want to change mine on the fly. He's much better at this game than I am. Delvin, what do you got this week?
Well, I'm sorry for last week, guys. I don't know what it is about Halloween, but I'm always sick on Halloween. I can hardly speak.
Are you eating Halloween candy right now, Delvin? Tell the truth.
I'm trying to make up for lost time.
It does feel that way. It does feel that way.
Yeah. But I couldn't talk last week, man. I don't know what's about Halloween and the holidays. I'm always sick, but I've been looking at a lot of games this week. One game they still, is Arkansas State at South Alabama. South Alabama is not. I don't know why they don't let them have point favorite. They're not the same team that they were last year when they played against Troy. And Bush Jones turned Arkansas State around a little bit. I'm going to fighting Bush Jones plus 11.5 over South Alabama.
Diesel, Delvin, heck of a pick. You feeling lucky today, Delvin?
Yeah, I'm feeling real good. I'm feeling a whole lot better than I was last week.
I don't remember saying your name here, Delvin. Where are you on the upset pick standings? You're in 20th.
I think 20th. You said my name. You said I think I'm number 20 or something
20th.
Like that.
Yeah, you're in 20th place. That's not a bad pick. Diesel, that is one of the 5 games that I've been considering.
What's crazy is that is my pick.
That is
my pick. Delvin and I are in a mind meld right now, and Delvin, you've just made me more confident in that pick.
How about that?
Yeah, I'm glad to be feeling better, guys. Last week I wanted to call in, but I couldn't. I lost my voice and everything.
We're glad you're feeling better. We're glad you're feeling better too, buddy. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, Delvin, we are glad you're feeling better. I had looked at a couple different games. I'd looked at Duke, UNC. I understand that Duke has really fallen off, but UNC is a roller coaster of a team right now. Also, I'd looked really closely at West Virginia plus 13 at Oklahoma State. I liked Iowa State at BYU plus 7. But that Arkansas State South Alabama game, I've got it at plus 12, and that's coming off of ESPN.com. But Arkansas State has put up 71 points in their last 2 games. South Alabama has scored just 30 in their last 2 games. So both of those have been losses. So Arkansas State's on a roll right now. I don't know what they've found, but they're on a roll, and South Alabama has fallen off. This is the same South Alabama that absolutely punked Oklahoma State earlier in the season, and they have fallen off in a big way over the last couple of weeks. It is unexplainable, but Delvin, I'm with you. I'm going the Red Wolves over the Jaguars of South Alabama.
Spur Daddy says, Mark, my Gamecocks almost lost to basically an FCS team last week. So what makes me think they can beat any SEC team at this point? Spur Daddy, you must not have been listening earlier in the show, because Kelley Ford told us that the James Madisons of the world, the Jacksonville States, the very top teams of the FCS are actually pretty good, probably top 40 FBS teams. Vandy's not a top 40 FBS team. Jacksonville State might be, right? So, like Gamecocks and a lot of these metrics, they're ranked in the 40s. I think Jacksonville State would beat Vanderbilt right now.
Yeah, and I appreciate Kelley Ford for backing me up and helping me dispel your stupid little jab that James Madison is doing this. This makes your conference look really bad. Kelley Ford has said that the Sun Belt is potentially the best Group of 5 country in America. Conference in America right now. They've got a bad bottom end, but every conference has a bad bottom end, so you can't really use that as an point of argument. But the Sun Belt is better than it's been, and James Madison is just that good. I think there's a lot in life with timing. How many times have you ever asked out the girl that you liked, and oh man, she just got out of a relationship, so she's not ready to start dating again, or you asked her out right after she'd just been asked out by somebody else. Timing really, really matters in life. And James Madison decided to make the move up at exactly the right time. And they've got just a stellar roster. And they got a great basketball program too. They just knocked off Michigan State the other night.
Diesel, I will tell you this. I think both things can be true. I think both things can be true in that the top of the FCS might be
I agree.
A borderline top 25 team, and the fact that it looks bad that an FCS school is winning the league.
I agree that the top end of the FCS is really, really good. I mean, in any league, if you've got the best coaches, if you've got the best players in a division, you're going to be elite. I mean, that's just a fact. You can't deny that. So, elite FCS teams can definitely be top 40, top 50 FBS teams. Absolutely.
All right. Up next on the show, Josh Pate joins us. Advice for Shane Beamer? We'll ask Josh next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Call us right back on this number when you get free. Thanks.
It's Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. You really appreciate, guys, guests like Josh Pate, who, I got to tell you something, man. He really, he doesn't do us a solid every single week. He absolutely does. But on Saturday, remember, he had food poisoning a week ago, and he didn't have his voice as a result of the food poisoning. And he wasn't doing media all week, and he couldn't do our hit last week because he didn't have his voice. He couldn't do his shows last week because he didn't have his voice. So, I dared on Friday, and I said, Josh, I know you're going to be at Alabama LSU tomorrow. Any chance I can squeeze 8 minutes with you, 9 minutes with you? And he says, I'll see what I can do. And he actually, at Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, hunted down a security guard, said, I need to find a quiet place. The security guard laughed at him. And Diesel, correct me if I'm wrong, man. The human biology, the small intestine is lower than the large intestine. Is that right? In terms of where things are in our bodies. Okay?
I think they're all jumbled up in there.
They're all jumbled up together. Yeah. So Josh told me he ended up being deep in the bowels of Bryant-Denny Stadium, and I said, you're in the small intestine.
Wonder if you found Lemmy-Winks in there.
And essentially, a broom closet doing 8 minutes with me on CBS Sports Radio, which just meant the absolute world to me. I believe I was the first media he did after coming back, and it just meant the world. And today, Josh Pate texted me and he said, Mark, I should be able to do our hit today, but I'm in New York doing a bunch of stuff, and I just want you to be aware that might not be the case. Okay, so all of that is to say that I do believe we have Josh Pate right now from the Late Kick Show. For my money, the best college football show in the country. My main man's doing some stuff in New York City, and you just heard the story of the solid Josh did for me from Bryant-Denny Stadium. Josh, what brings you to New York, man? Bring us there. Tell us what you're experiencing, what you're doing.
Oh, I'm about to bring you there. Okay, so for the listeners there, the last time Mark and I spoke, it was an hour before kickoff of LSU Alabama, and I had Bryant-Denny Stadium security find me some remote cave within the building I didn't know existed so I could get a quiet spot. And what if I told you, Marc Ryan, that the situation I'm in now is even more interesting because I am in the bowels of CBS World headquarters here in New York. We're about to do Inside College Football tonight, but Paramount owns us all. And Paramount also owns Nickelodeon. And I am standing, I kid you not, around all the sets of the old Nickelodeon shows that I watched growing up. and it's a little too much to process right now. I got to be honest. I'm a little starstruck.
Oh, wow. So what was your all-time favorite Nickelodeon show, Josh?
I'm an Are You Afraid of the Dark guy. That's 9:30 Eastern time, Saturday nights. They called it SNCC. And it, to me, it was the pinnacle of terror. Like, I didn't know who Stephen King was, but I knew what Are You Afraid of the Dark was. That one, for my money, was the best thing they ever produced.
Oh, yeah. By the way, Josh, this was not on Nickelodeon, but were you or Diesel either a guy for this show? Like, this was my childhood growing up. Double Dare with Mark Summers. Do you remember that?
Oh, it was
Loved
on
it.
Nickelodeon. Who told you that wasn't
Oh,
on
I
Nickelodeon?
didn't remember that it was on Nickelodeon.
I never wanted to shove my hand up a giant nose so bad.
I know, right?
Yes. Yes. And remember, when they incorporated something affectionately referred to as the pie coaster, they glorified pastry to the face unlike any other show I've ever seen.
That's one of the best shows ever.
Josh, we saw Greg Sankey last year step in to shut down the Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher beef because it got so nasty. Now, I can imagine that Big Ten coaches across the league are pretty fed up with the lack of discipline from the conference in regards to Michigan's cheating scandal. And there was audio that surfaced today of James Franklin making 3 or 4 not so veiled references to the film that is provided to the coaches. That's all they are going to study ahead of the Michigan game. What do you believe the league has told coaches as far as how they are or are not allowed to handle this and attack Michigan publicly?
It's probably sounded a lot like an HR investigation, which, as we all know, just infuriates everyone. I better say that quietly around here. That infuriates everyone. And so I think they've probably gotten listened to, and they've probably gotten head nods, but that's it. And so they probably look back across the table and say, okay, the head nod's great. You telling me you hear me is great. What are you going to do about it? And really, I don't think they know. Now, I do believe at this point, Michigan has been told, here's what we think we're going to do to you. And they have that obligatory window that they can respond in. And I think that's up any minute now. So, I mean, we'll have news coming out imminently from Ann Arbor one way or the other. But, I mean, what's the punishment? That's what we don't know yet. What's the recommended punishment? What does the Big Ten think will suffice? And at this point, especially with Michigan showing they're ready to draw their own sword and really go scorched earth on the conference, can you imagine being Tony Petitti, walking in and this is what you deal with? And by the way, I mentioned on Late Kick last night, you guys know growing up in the South, man, in the South, you grow up and you are taught from on high in Big Ten country. You guys down there are knuckle draggers. Up here, we do it a little bit differently. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking north and I see all the scandal that I was told I grew up with in the SEC. And it's really wild. It's like the entire sport inverted itself.
Josh Pate joining us here, host of the Late Kick Show, part of 24/7 Sports. You can check it out on YouTube, as hundreds of thousands do. Josh, sticking with James Franklin, I get a kick out of your literal interpretation of overrated, and literally speaking, you're right. The problem that Penn State fans have is they're tired of being the bridesmaid. So I want to ask you, Josh, has a coach ever needed a big game more than James Franklin does against Michigan right now?
Well, the answer is probably yes, but it's a short list if the answer is yes. So your point's well taken. It would be monumental for him. And James Franklin doesn't normally get to say this, but he's got the wind of the entire country in his collective sails at Penn State this week, because everyone else wants to see Michigan bite the dust as well. His own conference wants to see Michigan bite the dust. So James Franklin may get the ride out of the stadium on the shoulders Rudy treatment if he were to pull that off Saturday. But to do it, it's got to just be incremental. It's got to be a little more than they've been able to do. What you were referencing was something I talked about on the show last night. I am not a believer Franklin's overrated. I believe he's totally properly rated. And I actually use the evidence that people throw at me against them. They throw the stat that he's 3-16 against top 10 teams at me as evidence he's overrated. Well, that's not evidence of anything other than he's 3-16 against top 10 teams. What I want to know is how many of those games was he favored in? Because if you're losing as a favorite over and over again, that means you're overrated. If I look at it, though, and I see he was only favored in one of those 19 games, and he actually won that game, by the way, that's not being overrated. That is losing to the teams you're supposed to lose to. That is beating the teams you're supposed to beat. And then the follow-up I always get is, well, he shouldn't have been underdogs that many times. Well, that's a different conversation. If you think he should be achieving more, okay, I'll grant you that. We can have that conversation. But he's not overrated. But if they were to win Saturday, all of a sudden he starts doing something that he hasn't historically done, and he takes the next step, and that program takes the next step. And, Mark, I know we do upset picks, and I don't think we're done talking about this game because I'm going back to this well in a few minutes.
How about that?
Josh, the narrative 6 or 7 weeks ago was that Deion Sanders is revolutionizing coaching in a coach's first season. He's doing things that have never been done in a first season. The narrative now is that Deion is making rash decisions, firing coordinators in the middle of the season. How do you reconcile those two diametrically opposed narratives surrounding Deion's program, and where is he right now?
Diesel, you know a fair amount about pro wrestling, right?
No, I don't. I don't follow it at all.
Good. Then settle in around the campfire here. Are you afraid of the dark style? Let me toss some sand on the flame. And here is what I equate it to. In the old school, especially people in the Carolinas will know what I'm talking about here. In the old school territory days, they had a term called hot shotting. And what would happen if you hot shotted a town is you'd come into that little town, come into Spartanburg or Greenville or something like that, knowing that you're going to move on. You're not running that town over and over again. So you can go full grand finale fireworks style. You can give them every main event level match. You can pull out all the weapons and the chairs and the tables because you don't have to try and outdo yourself next week. You just move on. That's called hot shotting. Well, Deion Sanders has kind of hot shotted that program out there. And there was a lot of bluster and there was a lot of attention on it early on. And it was really fun to talk about. The real world happened and football started to occur and results started to stack themselves. And now what do? If you've hot-shotted things and it starts to not work out, unlike hot-shotting in pro wrestling, you got to keep coming back every Saturday. So what do? You don't have an answer to that question. So you just start doing what people would call making rash decisions. And that's exactly what it did with Sean Lewis. And by the way, if there's nothing else behind the scenes that we don't know about with Sean Lewis, that is one of the worst moves I've seen in a long time in coaching. I say that very hesitantly because I know we never see the full picture. But if we're seeing most of the picture, that was amazingly short-sighted to me.
Wow. Josh Pate joining us here, host of the Late Kick Show, here with Marc Ryan and Diesel, the fan upstate. Josh, I'm not sure if you see as much of Shane Beamer as we see around here. You cover the whole scope of college football, but week after week, I continue to see the behavior of somebody who's not acting like a CEO. And he's, when he loses, he's breaking bones, his own bones. When he wins, he's got a massive chip on his shoulder, has a "how you like me now" moment. You guys are miserable people. We're going to celebrate beating Jacksonville State. And I just don't fully understand what his issue is. And I was wondering, Josh, if Shane Beamer came to you as a friend, what advice would you give him?
Well, I'd say make what other people think about you none of your business, but it's very hard. It's easy for someone like me to say that because I really, truly just don't care what other people think, aside from family and close friends and whatnot. I just don't care. You can love or hate. I don't really care. I would prefer that you love me, but I don't really care. Shane Beamer is not that kind of personality. He is a guy who really strongly cares about what other people think about him. Dabo's the same way. They care about what other people think. I think Beamer probably wears that on his sleeve a little bit more. And I'm not really saying that this is a detrimental character flaw or anything, but it can be, because when times get tough, you start to exacerbate the situation instead of deadpanning it or playing it off. And Mark, I don't care if after your press conference you go and punch a hole in the wall, as long as it's outside of public view. But when you start allowing people to know they've gotten under your skin, that is like fuel for any kind of hater out there. And trust me, there are plenty of them that want to target Shane Beamer. And then the fuel to their fire even further is you losing football games. So I would say that. I wouldn't even give him football advice. I'm not qualified to give him football advice as much as I would just say, dude, you could avoid so many of these headaches if you just turn the ears off for a second or reprogram them to only hear certain things. But I know how much easier said that is than done.
Josh Pate joining us here on the show. Okay, Josh, I've got something for you here today. I went back and I studied the last 10 national champions. Basic statistics, offensive and defensive rankings. And what I found, Josh, was that the worst individual unit from the last 10 national champions, Alabama's offense in 2015, was 44th. So right around the very bottom of the top third of offenses in America. So what do the last 10 national champions have in common? All 10 were in the top 10 in total offense or total defense. Okay, that much is true. And so if you've got a single-digit unit ranking, that bodes very, very well. The other unit needs to be in the top third of all national of the entire nation. So that leaves us, Josh, applied to this year, with three teams who are the three teams that I've been telling my audience for the last couple of weeks are the only three that can win the national championship this year: Oregon, Georgia, and Michigan. Now, I want to ask you, Josh, if there was one team outside of that group that you think might have enough to win it all, who would it be? Because Oregon, Georgia, and Michigan all meet that criteria.
Yeah, I'd go with Alabama pretty quickly. The thinking there is if I slice the season in half, so I just take the back half of the season, that's a much better indicator of the team that you are in December. And I think if you were to go that route with an Alabama, for example, if you just take, last couple of weeks, let's start last week for the sake of argument and move on from there, you're probably looking at a team that fits that stat category and that profile a little more readily. And then also you've got to account for another common trait amongst a lot of those teams, and that is they scale performance late in the year. They rapidly improve. Dabo's teams have done that every year they've won a title. Even some years they didn't win the title. They've done that. And so I'm looking for a team that has that kind of potential, that kind of roster makeup and the potential. And I think Alabama absolutely is that. I heard Urban Meyer talking earlier today. They were asking him about Percy Harvin, and he said, there's a Percy Harvin in college football this year. It's just that he plays at Alabama and they happen to have him at quarterback. And I thought about it for a second. And look, Percy Harvin's a transcendent athlete, but I was on the field last weekend watching Bama LSU, and I didn't think Percy Harvin, but I thought the same thing. I thought, have they unlocked Jalen Milroe? Like, have they figured out the right way to use him? Because if they have, they've got a good enough defense, and they've got good enough complementary pieces. They had 8 guys catch balls the other night. It's not a one-man show there. Jermaine Burton didn't do anything in that game the other night, and he distributed, but he also ran the ball for half a mile. That's the team that I'd be most worried about finding a different gear come late November.
It's time, Josh. Time for your upset pick, my friend. And I will have you know, Josh, you are doing mighty nice in the upset pick challenge right now. You are in 11th place. All right. So you're just outside of the top 10. The first place guys have 40. Josh, you have 23.5. What are you thinking?
Yeah, so Penn State's going to beat Michigan Saturday morning. Wow. 5.5 points is what I'm going to, I guess, run the risk of putting on the line. I'm taking Penn State, though. I'm also betting the money line. Obviously, that's the name of the game, an upset special. So give me those 5.5 points. I'm taking Penn State.
We'll be watching Inside College Football tonight, pal. Thank you so much for all you do. Congratulations on all the blessings that have come your way. Well earned. Have a great one.
I appreciate it, Mark. Thank you.
Take care. Josh Pate, the host of the Late Kick Show, Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here, joining us here on The Fan Upstate. Great stuff, as always, guys, from Josh. And super excited, always super excited to have him on with us. All right, are your upset picks coming in? We've got Kyle D going Miami plus 15.5 over Florida State, wide right. Mongo says Spur Daddy needs to meet me in Greer to give me his fan card. Let's see here. Mark, you can't do that on television. I remember that. Best Nick show in the 80s and 90s. Double Dare was the all-time GOAT. To me, Diesel, that was the all-time GOAT. No one could ever ride the tricycle through the chocolate syrup.
Right.
Remember that?
Double Dare was great, but they took it to the next level with Guts.
Okay.
Nickelodeon Guts. It was a kids competition show
saw that.
that ended up with the kids trying to race up this artificial mountain called the Aggro Crag. And the trophy was just some stupid looking hunk of metal and plastic and lights. It was amazing. I wanted to be on that show so bad. Guts trumps Legends of the Hidden Temple any day. That said, Legends of the Hidden Temple, still a great show.
Up next, my friends, I will give you my upset pick of the week. That's on the flip side. Here on the show that gives you both sides. Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Might be an outsider.
Offsides. Let's see here. Guts with Mike O'Malley was the name of the show, a texter says. Another texter says, did I miss the updated standings? Yes, sir. That always happens in the 4 o'clock segment, but we will reissue the top 10 in our upset pick standings coming up at the top 5 at 5. Brandon, tied for the lead, says, give me Stanford over Oregon State and the 20.5. They pulled one last week. Let's let it ride. Let's let it ride, my friends. Okay, guys, it is time for my upset pick. Time for my upset pick. I considered 5 games. 5 games I considered. Here they are. I considered Utah plus 9.5 at Washington. Didn't go well hosting Oregon a few weeks ago, but and I know Washington beat Oregon, but I think what you're going to see is Oregon destroys Washington in the rematch. I consider that game because Washington is a team that is beating itself lately, and you can't do that when you play Utah. You just can't do that. I considered Arkansas State against South Alabama for all the reasons that Diesel and Delvin discussed. I considered West Virginia plus 13 at Oklahoma. Why? Because I just wonder how much you got a really demoralized team there. You know, Oklahoma's lost its mojo the last couple of weeks, losing to Kansas, losing in the last Bedlam, right? But in the end, folks, it came down to 2 games for me. And these were the 2 that I wrestled with. All right. Up first, I got a funny feeling about this, man. I got a really funny feeling. Mississippi State plus 18.5 at Texas A&M. That's the home run pick. Okay. Why? Well, because A&M's not playing for anything anymore. They're playing for the head coach's job. I'm told that they don't. I get the sense that they don't particularly like Jimbo Fisher all that much. I wasn't told, but I get the sense that, you know, the level of passion for saving his job, like he's not the kind of guy that builds these super strong relationships with players. I just have this weird feeling about this game that we're going to be looking up in the 3rd quarter and Mississippi State's going to have a lead. Okay. Because they're still trying and they're still caring, and I'm not sure Texas A&M is anymore. But that's not what I went with. And maybe I'll look back and regret this. I'm going, this team, ladies and gentlemen, is the most Florida-like team on the West Coast. Okay, now what do I mean by that? They're the most Florida-like team. They're a totally different team home and road. Totally different team. Don't win on the road, never lose at home. That was the case for Florida until last week against Arkansas. I'm going BYU and 7 over Iowa State. They're getting Iowa State at home. They've been road weary. They've been getting pummeled in the Big 12. At home, their home crowd does not let them do that. They don't let them do that at home. So I'm going to go for the 7 points, and I'm going to go BYU +7 over Iowa State. How do you feel? Oh, JC 3 minutes ago chose BYU +7 over Iowa State, and he's now firmly regretting that move. John Corley is taking a swing with what I said previously. Mississippi State +18 over Texas A&M. Cowboy Noel is also chiming in with his upset pick. He is going USC +15 over Oregon. USC, he says, has to prove themselves this week after firing the defensive coach, and Oregon always chokes. Oregon's got an unbelievable roster. Matt J also chiming in right now with Mississippi State over Texas A&M. You guys got the same feeling around that one that I do? It might be big swing time, right? It might be really big swing time. And I just, what is A&M playing for anymore? Cowboy Noel just took USC over Oregon. What is USC playing for anymore? You got a bunch of people telling Caleb Williams to shut it down, stop playing. I mean, we're in that time of the year. Now, Dabo Swinney always does an unbelievable job of getting his team, rallying the troops, right? Even when they've lost their goals, he gets them to still, to still bring the lunch pail. And fortunately, there's no additional letdown game on Clemson's schedule for me, right? Why? Because Georgia Tech is at home. The home crowd won't allow it. All right. Number 2, because North Carolina is at home, and that's a big game, Drake May, etc. Okay. And number 3, even though South Carolina is a road game, it's your rival road game, right? So there are no more letdown potential games, in my opinion, on Clemson's schedule right now. And that combined with Dabo really kind of doing a good job finding ways to motivate a team when they've kind of lost what they're playing for. That says something, right? That says something. And then how about South Carolina playing for bowl eligibility? I do think, I'm not saying South Carolina goes up this week in class. I think Jacksonville State is better than Vanderbilt. And I think you're going to see that over the course of this game. You're going to say, well, okay, yeah, South Carolina's been in control over Vanderbilt the whole way through. Didn't feel like this against Jacksonville State. I think this is going to be a very rare, comfortable win for the Gamecocks, right? The flip side is, right, that then the class steps up. Beginning now, every week, the class is going to step up. You're going to go from about a 2 out of 10 with Vanderbilt to a 6 out of 10 with Kentucky to a 7 out of 10 with Clemson. Can you beat a 6-level team, a 7-level team at home? Florida is the very epitome of a 5 team. Scale of 1 to 10, Florida's a 5, right? South Carolina had Florida dead to rights at home. Threw the game away, right? Threw the game away. And, now with Florida scuffling, that looks like a massive, massive missed opportunity. All right, let's see here. Leprechaun of Lyman chiming in with Utah +9.5 over Washington. John Dog, all you guys are listening to me today. This feels great. Mississippi State over A&M and 18 points. Hurricane Jeff says, I've got a feeling about this game. Miami has been beating teams they should not beat and losing to teams they should beat. Well, your name is Hurricane Jeff. So how can I take what you're saying seriously? How can I do it? They are 14-point underdogs in this game, and I'm going to ride with my Hurricanes against the Seminoles for 14 points. So says Hurricane Jeff. Mark L.O. Ducks doing the always smart thing, going Penn State +4.5 over Michigan. Wow. Why might that be on point? Because we don't know what Michigan is without cheating, right? If you cheated on an exam and got an 86 or a 96 because you cheated, how do we know what you would have gotten if you didn't cheat? How do we know who Michigan is without the sign stealing? We don't. We're finding out, right? The top 5 at 5 is coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel. And we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your day each and every day. Here's how you can take part. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. And the carpro.com text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Jam-packed in this hour. Coming up in the very next segment, we're going to have a fun little ditty where you have the right to remove a team from a conference. Okay? You have the right to do that. Now, here's what you got to do. You got to make your case, because if Diesel doesn't feel like you've made a strong enough case, he's going to ixnay your suggestion. So in other words, you just texting in Vandy out of the SEC, that's not going to be approved because you haven't, right, you have, exactly, Diesel, you haven't made a case. What will help you is if you say something like, Vanderbilt has only won 4 games or more in the SEC one time in the last 30 years. Okay? I don't know that to be true, but I mean, you need to be able to make the case. So I'm giving you 20 minutes to get your research, get your ducks in a row, kick a team out of a conference. Then we will be happy to listen to see if any of those teams are saved. So if you kick a team out of the conference, somebody else has the opportunity to save that team from within their conference. That is coming up, my friends, in the very next segment at 5:20 p.m. How about that? How about that? All right. It is time for us to do that jam. We call it the Top 5 at 5. The top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstates, Offsiders, the top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
He could have handled that with a little pat on the head.
5.
All right, at number 5 today, I want to share more about this with you because, frankly, I did the legwork. I did the research. What is the resume of teams that are winning national championships the last 10 years? Well, here you go. Proprietary Offsides information that you will not hear anywhere else, okay? The last 10 years to win the national championship, you had to have the following, okay? In either offense or defense, you needed to be top 10 in America. Okay, top 10 in offense or defense. That's point number 1. In the other category, so let's say you were number 6 in offense. So you get the check mark there. In the lesser of your 2 units, offense or defense, you still needed to be in the top 3rd of all teams. Okay? So roughly 130 teams, you needed to be in the low 40s, right? To meet the qualification. The worst units, offense or defense, on a team that won the national championship over the last 10 years, Alabama in 2015, their offense was ranked 44th, okay? No unit outside of Alabama the last 10 years that won was ranked worse than 32nd. In 2019, LSU's defense, remember Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase and company, Terrence Marshall, they were ranked 32nd in defense. In 2020, Alabama was ranked 32nd in defense. But simply put, you got to be top 10 in one of the 2 major categories, total offense or total defense. And the other one has to be top third, okay? Within the top third, within the, worst case scenario, 40s or so, right? So who meets the criteria? Because right now, folks, there are exactly 11 teams left alive for the college football playoff. They are Oregon, Washington, Georgia, Ole Miss, Florida State, Texas, Louisville, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, and Penn State. Okay? 11 teams left that are still alive. So let's go through these one by one. Does Penn State qualify? They do not. They get a check for defense. They're second in overall defense, but they're 61st in offense. No bueno. Does Alabama get a check? They do not. Alabama, Diesel, has the 72nd ranked offense in America. Now, they're playing better, but are they playing well enough? They're 25th in total defense, so they're not in the top third in their worst category, and they don't have a top 10. They're not even close. Does Ohio State get the check? No, but just barely. Ohio State is 46th in offense, 45th in total defense. Does Michigan get the check? Yes, but also barely. Michigan has the best defense in America, but the 43rd ranked offense, just one slot better than Alabama in 2011. How about Louisville? Louisville does not get the check. Louisville does not get the check because they are 29th in offense, 12th in defense, but they're if they can get that D inside the top 10, they meet the criteria. How about Texas? Texas gets a no because they don't have a top 10. 18th in offense, 31st in defense. How about Florida State? Florida State gets a no. 17th in offense, 34th in defense. They don't have a top 10 unit. Ole Miss also gets a no. 12th in offense, 57th in defense. They don't have a top 10. Their worst unit is not in the top third. Georgia gets a yes. 6th in offense, 9th in defense. They're top 10 in both categories. Washington gets a hell no. 4th in offense, but check this out. 97th in total defense. And Oregon gets a hell yeah. 2nd in offense, 18th in total defense. They have a top 10. They're well within the top third in the lesser of their two categories, all of which tells you, ladies and gentlemen, what I've been telling you for weeks, that there's 3 teams that can win the national championship this year. Georgia, Michigan, and Oregon. I'm Marc Ryan, and I approve this message. Next up.
4.
At number 4. I keep reading this, and I don't understand the why here. I do not get the why. Why is Clemson being placed on upset alert against Georgia Tech? Why? Why are they being placed on upset alert? Explain this to me. I think I know that people think Clemson is prime for a letdown game after putting everything into the Notre Dame game. That might be the case if it was at Georgia Tech, but it's in Death Valley. And you Clemson fans aren't going to let Clemson have a letdown, right? You're not going to let that happen. I think those who feel like that's the case are looking only at the standings page, where Georgia Tech is in 3rd place in the ACC and Clemson is in 10th. There's a reason why Clemson is a 2-touchdown, 14-point favorite in this game. They've got better athletes than the Yellow Jackets do. And while the Yellow Jackets win over North Carolina impresses me, the Tar Heels defense does not so much, right? Georgia Tech's defense does not. Clemson's formula for winning week in and week out is very, very clear. And if they follow this formula, they can play with and beat anybody. Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia. Let the defense do its thing. Don't turn the damn ball over. You do that, you'll be in a 4th quarter game against anybody. So I am ixnaying Clemson being on upset alert this week. I just don't buy it. I watched and rewatched the Clemson-Notre Dame game. I saw a light switch come on, the light bulb go off, and I believe that this team is beginning to play its best football. At.Kelley Ford joined us on the show today, said that Clemson has a 35% chance to run the table and finish 8-4. Next up.
3.
We are told that this is going to be coming, and this is going to be rattling some cages, Diesel, before the end of the show today. Discipline from Michigan Commissioner Tony Petitti to Michigan themselves.
Big Ten Commissioner.
Big Ten Commissioner. What did I say?
Michigan commissioner.
Oh, my bad. Big Ten commissioner. Tony Petitti. Handing down the dropping the hammer.
If his last name is Petiti, what does that stand for? Little what's?
Well, I told you that my last name means little grapes.
Right.
Right. It doesn't make me insecure at all. It doesn't make me insecure at all.
No, big grapes. What's big grapes in Italian?
I have no idea. No idea. So anyway, guys, we're about to there's about to be a major battle that unfolds between the Big Ten and Michigan. Tony Petitti has to serve all the members of the conference. The members want Michigan to be penalized and punished severely, right? Now, there is some evidence that has come out that maybe Purdue was guilty of the same thing Michigan is. And my reaction to that is, whataboutism is about the lowest level argument you could possibly take part in. Very, very, very low level stuff here. Okay? If Purdue took part, then punish them as well. It's that simple. You know, whataboutism doesn't get you out of your crime. That is not a get out of jail free card. Okay? If Purdue did it, punish them. But we know at this point that Michigan did it. We know that they are guilty as charged. All right? And the program should be punished. And if Jim Harbaugh, who is likely, I'm told, to be the one who was punished here, didn't know what was going on, don't you think he should have? Don't you think he should have?
Wouldn't that be where lack of institutional control comes from?
Yes, completely. Next up,
2.
At number 2 today, we want to ask you guys if what you're about to hear is onsides or offsides. Diesel, can you set this up for us here, man?
Yeah, this is audio from, looks like a midweek presser with Georgia State head coach Sean Elliott, who spent some time on South Carolina staff, who was an App State grad and former player. He was asked a question, and he gives an answer here that if I'm a Georgia State fan, I would have a problem with. The question is this onsides or offsides?
You know, Georgia State's got a lot of ties to them. You're an App State guy. Charlie is, and you know, there's a lot of things. Well, what would it
I'm
mean
an App State guy. Charlie's not an App State guy. Charlie worked at App State. He's not an App State guy. I was an App State guy, and I graduated from there.
Charlie, they're referring to as Charlie Cobb, who is the current athletic director at Georgia State, former athletic director at App State. So, in my opinion, Sean Elliott here takes a little offense to this person asking or stating that Charlie Cobb is an App State guy. Oh, no, he's not. No, he's not. I'm an App State guy. He's not an App State guy. If that's my head coach, I got a little problem with that because you don't say multiple times in a 16-second clip, I'm an App State guy. You don't say that. You say, I played there. I cut my teeth there as a coach. I appreciate everything that I achieved while I was there, but I'm a Georgia State guy. I would have a problem with that. Do you have a problem with that?
Big problem, Diesel. Big problem. Because you're not an App State guy when you're employed by
Georgia
State. So, Diesel, here's the thing. All right? Don Munson joins the show. He ends his interview with us every week with what does he do?
Great to spread the gospel of the Tigers. Go Tigers.
Right, but he says also something to you about Appalachian State.
No, this is our off-air conversation that we have when I call him. I say the first line of our fight song.
Okay.
And he finishes the second half of that line.
So here's where I
because he's an App State grad like I am.
Right. Here's where I think it's onsides and offsides, Diesel. Don Munson, off the air, can be an App State guy because he graduated.
Sure.
And Clemson is not an immediate rival of Appalachian State.
Sure.
But you can't play in the same conference as Appalachian State and publicly in a media setting say that you are an App State guy.
Right.
That to me would really burn my brownies if I'm Georgia State. If you're a member of the hated Mountaineers, what are we paying you for? So I'm going to say, Diesel, that's offsides. What do you say?
It is offsides.
You can't lose to Georgia Southern because they're not App State.
Tony Kornheiser knows.
That's right, baby.
It's offsides. Right. I would be livid if my head coach was an alum of another institution in my conference and says in a press conference, I am a Marshall guy. I am a James Madison guy.
Yeah.
I am a Coastal Carolina guy. You can't say that in the interviews.
At all. You cannot do that at all. So cut it out. Cut the crap. And finally,
1.
upset pick standings are large and in charge, my friends. As soon as I get the graphic in my email, I will be posting these for you. So we will do that as soon as we possibly can. And my friends, here are the top 10 in the standings. In 10th place, Stanford Steve with 24 points. 9th place, Delano the truck driver with 25. Mad Craft is in 8th place with 27 points. Sherb is in 7th with 28.5. In 6th place, it's Minor 49er with 29. 5th place, now to the top 5, the Leprechaun of Lyman, Hiddly-hoo, 29.5 points. In 4th place, it's Kyle D, 31 points. In 3rd place, Metal Stand.
Here, kitty.
Absolutely, Leprechaun of Lyman. 3rd place, it's none other than Pat McAfee, 33.5 points. And we've got a tie at the top of the leaderboard. It is Brandon and Joe D with 40 big points. In just about every year that we've had, right around 50 points wins the thing. Are we going to need more than that this year to win? We will soon see. As for Diesel and I, I'm in 38th place with 6.5. Diesel's in 42nd with 6. There's always tomorrow.
How have you hit 3 in a row and you still only have 6
No,
points?
Diesel, I haven't hit 3 in a row. That was the
You
guy
hit 3
misspoke.
total.
I've hit 3 total this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that says a lot about you.
Yeah, I've hit 3 total this year. Diesel,
Going after these 1-point upsets.
I sputter along, Diesel. I sputter along. It's time for you to get your upset picks in. We want at least a 3-point underdog. Text us your name, your game, and your point spread. Those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FAN-FONE. That's 844-326-3663. The CarPro.com text line is there for you as well at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube at The Fan Upstate on each one. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. We'd love to have you. And finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Marc Ryan, that is M-A-R-C Ryan, at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Coming up next on the show, you will have the chance to remove a team from a conference, but you got to make your case, whether it be by text or by phone. And if your case stinks, we're sending you home. How about that? That's next right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Let's move Ingles next so we can say goodbye. Okay. Stream, awesome job as always. I look up and I see like 10, 12, 15 people in the stream. We love seeing that. We want to keep seeing that. We want to see this grow to 15, 18, 20 regularly throughout the show. But regardless, Madcraft, Mongo, JD, all you guys who've been in here the entire time, we appreciate you checking in throughout the day, and hope you guys have a great rest of your evening.
Do you guys like me in Gamecock colors? Is this a good look for me? What do you think? What do you think? How do we do? We appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for giving us just another fun thing to take part of during the show. We'll see you guys tomorrow.